Welcome to the Wisdom Check by Tabletop to Keyboard. This is going to be our bi-weekly podcast where we discuss things such as Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, I think maybe we need to turn up my mic a little bit, guys. How about some more game?
This is the intro to end all intros. Talk about Dungeons, Dragons, and
Now, I don't think that's proper. This is a family show after all. This is the intro we can use, fellas. It's good, clean fun for everyone. Welcome to the Wisdom Check, where we have wholesome conversations about the dilemmas we face every day.
Nah, hold on a second. I got your intro right here. Yeah, that's better. Welcome to the Wisdom Check. Well, I'm right, Jeff's wrong. We're gonna have guests on to talk about it. It's gonna be awesome. Because I said so.
He is right. He did say so. I don't know. Is surf music the best music for a podcast about D&D?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
This just in, nobody can agree on our intro for this podcast. So we're just going to start. Welcome to the Wisdom Check. Roll for initiative. Fuck. A 1. It's like every time.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's another Monday evening, and so here we are for another episode of the Wisdom. Dustin, with me here as always is Jeff. And
Hey, Dustin.
We are a little on the guest list side tonight, as you can see. It's just me and Jeff.
Yeah, it's really weird. We have really big heads tonight.
It is. Yeah, there's way more of us on the screen than usual. So
As a result, I think we have such big heads, we're actually going to just talk to ourselves this time.
my head's usually always about this big. I've got an inflated ego, but I'm self-aware, so I'm told it's okay.
Awesome. So what are we going to talk about tonight, you may be wondering. And, it is just like the old days there, Defenders of Cobalt, getting back to our roots. And
Right.
that kind of harkens back to us playing Dungeons & Dragons together. And if you were with us this weekend, you saw a pretty nasty fight that we got into, whereas we were down a man because somebody was off having a good old drink with his buddies.
Well, somebody has a lot of friends, and so occasionally they need me to prove that I'm still worth a damn. So they drag me off to some corner of the country and make me drink lots of whiskey, and it was a good time. So
This sounded like a really good time. The pictures were nice, and it's a good opportunity, to get back out there and actually play the game or hang out with people in a social setting, do stuff together. And that's why one of the reasons why I love doing this show with you. We get a chance to do things together, like argue and bicker all the time, which we're going to do a lot of tonight. I have a feeling
we warmed up a lot today on Discord. So
boy, howdy did we ever. So we got into a discussion because at the end of this last fight that almost total party wiped us, we leveled up. And we've been going pretty slow with our leveling this campaign. And so we are just now hitting level 7. And this is the first campaign we've actually played of 5th edition. We've been Pathfinder pretty much exclusively, maybe even exclusively for like the last however many years Pathfinder has existed. And it's a different beast. And
it is a little bit.
Yeah. So when I got into my my upgrading of my sheet here, I'm playing a wizard. And I looked at it, I'm like, level 7 wizard. All right, what do I get? -. Okay. Anything go up on my sheet? Proficiency stays the same. Okay. I get one more spell slot. It's level 4. And I picked 2 spells. And that's, okay, I'm done. Feels like I'm missing some things here. I want to have some more options. And there seemed to be a consensus among many of the other people in our game that we're hungering for some choices, but not one Dustin. Dustin seems to know the setup.
I don't know what these guys are talking about. My druid, I got 4th level spells this level. I got like 20 new spells I can pick from every day. Like they do all kinds of great things. They help me locate creatures, create tidal waves. Well, bigger tidal waves than I was creating already. Apparently, like can now move freely underwater, like all kinds of good shit. I don't know what these guys are actually complaining about. I think they're just playing the wrong classes. I think that's the problem. They just pick some shitty classes or something. I don't know.
Well,
like,
so
did you get 4th level spells too? Like,
I got a single slot, and I could pick 2 spells out of my spell book.
Yes, it's the problem with wizard. Yep. I don't think it's a 5e problem. I think this is like more of a wizard. Like, this seems like more of a wizard problem.
Well, hello there, BizLab. I don't know. I think we were having a discussion. The 2 people in our group who are not feeling completely lackluster about leveling up were the warlock and the druid in our party. And the rest of the guys in our group, we have a paladin, we have what is he technically, a fighter rogue? Fighter, mostly.
The not bard, as we call him.
Not bard, yep. He's not a bard, don't say that. And then you got me as the wizard, and you've got Dustin as the druid. And so far, the druid and the warlock seem to be pretty happy with their options. And so we kind of got into the weeds on that, kind of looking into it a bit. And so I think what we see is that the druid, or like we'll say the cleric maybe, since they're divine spellcasters, get the full list of things as options. And then the warlock had the ability to pick new invocations, new spells, swap things in and out, which I think is unique to the warlock. We thought it was the fighter as well, but I don't
think the fighter does. I think he's set on his once he picks them.
Yeah,
but he does get the most choices of anyone going down the line.
Yeah, he has the most options for feats. So yeah, if you have a few extra ones kicking around, I think they get 2 or 3 additional ones throughout the level progressioning. And that is
makes a difference because you're capped at what you can push your stat adjustments up to.
Up to 20.
So if you're looking to tweak out your sheet a bit, which usually is when we're talking about these sheet mechanics, is where this part comes in. When you start tweaking those sheets out a little bit, you can only go up so much with your main stat anyway. So with a fighter, that's almost always strength. It can sometimes be dex. Rarely can I imagine where it would be con, but I can make an argument that it's definitely either strength or dex, depending on what you want to go.
Yep.
So if you're pushing that so far, you can only push the adjustment like a couple of times before you've hit the wall of where you're allowed to go, depending on where you started at with racial adjustments, whatever. So once you've hit that point, it still leaves you some room to pick a feat or 2, which is kind of nice for a fighter. It's like, in my opinion, with the feats the way they're done in 5e, you're not getting 1 feat. If it was Pathfinder, each one of those is worth 3 or sometimes 4 feats, depending on which one you're taking, depending on how you look at them. Like, because they usually do 2 to 3 things each. Right.
Well, it depends on the one you're looking at. Like the Great Weapon Mastery is definitely a role of power attack, cleave, and greater
for sure. You're basically just bundling your car insurance with your home insurance at that point is what you're doing. You're just buying one package, they're giving it to you all up front. And sometimes I think that's kind of the problem with 5e is you get so much in those first 3 levels, and then it's like you just live with your choices after that. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now just to see some of the other feats real quick. Because I remember some of them are just like, here's a bonus to an attribute, or this is a when you're prone, you can move 5 more feet.
Well, but no, they're not. It's like Stalker's a real good one. Like you don't reveal yourself when you shoot from range while stealthed. You get a +1 to Dex, and it does literally almost every feat does like 3 things. Like Dungeon Delver, you take half damage from traps in dungeons. You get a bonus to one of the skills, I think. Like they're all do like 3 things pretty much, like just in general.
Yeah, I think the Pizza Trek is talking about Xanathar's Guide adding racial ones, and those are pretty cool. I like those.
Yeah,
but for the most part, there are very few feats. So when you're looking through, there's some that are clearly the ones you pick. Like, okay, so
yes, I think we are back. Sorry about that, everybody. Sometimes Discord just takes a complete dump on us, and that's about what just happened right there, I think.
So we were in the middle of saying something. I don't know how much of that spilled out, but we were basically talking about levels and
kind of combined feats from something like if you were comparing them to Pathfinder. And I think with Pathfinder 2 coming out, I think that's where a lot of this discussion starts to come back out again, is how do you compare leveling in 5e with leveling in Pathfinder 1, and then what we're looking at with now that we're getting hold of the book and looking at Pathfinder 2 to a degree, kind of what we have coming maybe down the road. And I think that's kind of where a lot of this discussion has started to kind of churn up from a bit.
Could be. Yeah, and you were saying before that a lot of the design philosophy of 5e seems to be pick once, be done. And I think there are definitely players who prefer that style of play. Like, I know we had LARPers that would come up and say, hey, build my sheet for me. I just want to play it. That's just definitely not me, though. Like, for me, I got a lot of joy out of the actual working of the sheet, kind of coming up with ideas, kitting things out, coming up with a concept that seemed neat, try to, cobble it together out of the parts that I had available to me.
Yeah, but
and
you guys
each
were
level
also
feeling like I can make choices.
But you guys were also the ones who would come to a game with all 20 levels already mapped out. Like, you already made all your decisions before game one ever happened. Like,
yeah, but there were choices I made.
You had the ability to audible them, but I mean, you already made them before the game started. So, like, every level, there's not a surprise what you're getting. You already know. It's not like Christmas where, hey, we hit level 7. Let's go pick some cool stuff now. Like, you already had it figured out.
But the difference is those were choices I made, as opposed to a prepackaged bundle that I just went that one.
Yeah, I mean, some of it I agree. Yes, some of it, like I was saying, like in our discussion, like when I look at like Pathfinder First Ed, a lot of your like melee classes, there were definite trees you kind of had to go down, and you kind of had to keep going down them because if you didn't progression, you couldn't keep up with the Joneses. Like we saw that with a lot of different kind of character types. Like if you didn't continue down the paths, you most certainly didn't keep up. Like, sometimes with Pathfinder, the way I always felt about it, like I feel like 5e kind of generalized a lot of things. Like you didn't have to get clear into the minutia of a lot of things in order to continue to do the things you want to do with it as much. Like if you think about something like sundering, like there's a rule for sunder and you can sunder. Right. In Pathfinder, it was like, yeah, there's a rule for sunder, but you ain't ever going to do it unless you have these 3 other feats attached. So you're pretty much not sundering if you don't take those 3 things. Like you're pretty much just right out of the book. You can't do it. And there's a lot of other things where it's like, well, I'd like to do this. Well, I'm sorry, it's a feat in this book. Well, okay, I guess I can't do that. I don't have that feat. So to me, the more options you have that you have to take in order to do something, the more you limit what your character can actually do. And what I like about 5e is I don't feel like I'm limited because I'm not required to take 5 feats to do the same damn thing that I can just say, Levi, I want to do this. And Levi goes, yeah, do it. Right. I make an attack roll and it works. Like, yeah, I could see some of that. Like there are certain things that are frustrating when you like, I want to grapple that guy. Sorry, you need a feat for that. Exactly. The things I found the most annoying about it was the just the straight math ones. Like I like the feats that gave new capabilities. Sure. Or allowed you to modify the capability in some way. What I didn't like was the flat out, you get a +2 to this thing. Or your grapple now has a +2 on top of the other +2 you picked. And if you didn't take those, you weren't keeping up with the defense, the monsters or anything else that you're, going up against. And that's in a game where your DM isn't like cranking up the difficulty on things and having to literally break the game to keep up with some sheets when other sheets aren't. So it's like, it's one of those things where like the more that you push those limits, the more the DM has to push back. And then the more everyone else has to push those limits or they might as well not be playing. And that it's a point where I just don't want to deal with that sort of shit again. Like I'll probably never go back to Pathfinder First Ed. Well, I mean, I think we played it enough at this point that we've kind of grounded into the dirt. But with the chat we're hearing here, they're talking about Beastmaster Ranger in particular, which is an absolutely awful class. I was gonna say Ranger is like the worst one. It's like the poster child for what's wrong with 5e. If you're gonna pick a class that you want to talk about something wrong, Ranger's where you go. At least I would like to believe that all builds are viable, but they're not. Like, it's like they went back and they said, hey, we're gonna make everything easy mode. You could pick a class and it's just gonna work. But then they forgot, players like certain styles built into their games. The wizard has to be the most powerful thing on the planet because it's a freaking wizard. A fighter should just be a fighter, dude. He's good at fighting, So like, there's some built-in stuff based on concepts, I think, in the gaming world that have made some of the classes unbalanced. Unearthed Arcana, I hear, did a nice rework on Ranger, but I hear it's still a little lagging behind probably what you can do with a lot of other classes. But in my opinion, it's like everyone's still following Fighter. Like, Fighter's so damn good. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm pretty impressed what Timmy's done with Warlock. Yeah, Warlock's potent. But I still feel like it's hard to beat Fighter in 5e. Well, I mean, they took a staple class and they said, look, we got to make this one work because this is one of the core guys. I'm a little surprised by how the other ones performed relative to it. Like, the Ranger is a pretty popular class. You would think that would be one that would really work. And it may work better in certain games than others. Like, I think if you had a lot of
exploration and like world travel, hunting, that kind of stuff. Maybe they do a little bit more, but most games don't really do a lot of that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're actually seeing in this Everstorm game far more difficult terrain and things like that. Like when I'm playing a druid, and when I got nature walk, or whatever they call it now for druids, where I got to ignore difficult terrain, I was like, well, that'll be something funny I might use once, right? Whatever. And it was like the moment I got that, I don't know if Levi was aware of it, but like all of a sudden, like the maps had difficult terrain all over the damn place. And I was just like, I'm walking through the difficult terrain. And then you always, when you get an ability like that level up, then you always have to ask yourself, like, is this a good thing? Because all I'm really doing is leaving everyone else behind. Like, if you guys were in that difficult terrain, like, I'd have blown through that thing and been in that stupid elemental's face way earlier, and I probably should have been. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, that's a choice that's interesting.
Right.
But I like that as an option, because then you can make the choice of doing something dumb or not. Yeah, it is a little difficult when you have party members that can't keep up with you and whatnot. Just because, again, that's another example where what you were saying before, if you didn't have the abilities cranked up to the max, you got left behind. Sure. You know, this would be other examples where the map changes to accommodate a new ability to showcase it, whereas that could also cause other people not to be able to participate.
And when we talk about 5e, like I'm not completely blinded by what it is and what it isn't. I think that there's things like Druid where, like I was discussing, like I get so many wild shape options. Like I've got like I feel like I have an endless plethora of things I can decide to do in any given combat based on the situation we're in. And, you know, that's one thing I always used to get with Paladin, like in Pathfinder. I was always able to take Paladin, and like because of spell casting and things, I always felt like I had a nice toolbox of like, well, what do I feel like doing to handle this situation today? And I could reach back, pull something out, and take care of the problem, you know. And I feel like I still have that with Druid. So I guess maybe that's why I don't feel this like void of like, man, I'm just throwing fireballs every round, you know, or something like that.
Well, I mean, you and I are kind of similar in playstyle in some capacities, that we're not into damage particularly. We don't really like to just roll and do damage kind of things.
Right. Yeah.
So like for us, like I think we favor more complexity in our choices as, you know, what we favor for classes. Like I like a big, broad toolkit. I don't necessarily need them to be super potent. I need them to just be things that I want to make a cool choice. You know, like I have 3 things that might work. I want to make one choice that maybe works well in a different way than these other 2 do.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what I feel like I'm missing in 5th Ed.
Yeah, see, and I don't know, like I said, and maybe it's just because it's Druid, but like I feel like I've got those options. And so far, I mean, if you've watched the combats with Bauer in them, I mean, I've made pretty good use of them. Like I don't feel like I've been like lacking in any potency in this game at all. Yeah, I think you've been hit for near what Kodo can do, but you know, in one single hit, like he hits way harder than I do, and I don't even care. But like, I just have enough CC crowd control and enough splash AOE damage that like I haven't felt like I'm just there throwing heals on people and waiting for combat to end. Yeah, I think for me the crowd control is the most fun aspect of things. So it's clearly what I'm focusing on this game, and it's what you're doing as well. So we're getting a little double dip in there. It's pretty nice. But like I think like Wizard, in theory, should be a really massive toolkit, right? That's the reason I kind of went into it, as opposed to say like a sorcerer or a bard where you have limited choices. And like I do like the ritual casting. Like I think that extends your options a lot as a wizard. Are you just missing meta magic feats at this point? I mean, is that really what you feel like you're missing? No, the ability to like expand a spell or heighten a spell or anything like that? That's not what you feel literally like spells in my spell book. Because I feel like with Wizard, like that's always been an issue. Like, isn't that always been how Wizard's been limited by him having to find and like curate a book where everyone else just prays for their stuff every day? Like, there's literal memes out there about how that's always the case. Well, but in theory, like say a sorcerer, right? They would get, you've got 3 spells of this level, period. Better pick them well. You know, you're never getting any more. You know, whereas a wizard, it's like, yeah, I only got 2 right now, but anytime I find one, I can just add it to my book. Right. I have to tell you which ones I'm going to use that day, but the next day I might be able to use different ones. You're still limited by spell slots for what you cast a day, but you don't have but you still have a defined list. That's what has never made sense about Wizard. Like you have a defined list. It's not like you can find a druid spell and be like, yeah, I'm going to add that to my book because I found it. you can't do that. It's still just a damn druid or sorcerer spell. Like you can't use it. Like you still have a defined list. I guess that's the part that's always like bugged me, is that Wizard would be so much different if he could just pick up scrolls and just add them to his book and be like, these are my spells now. But he can't. Like he's still stuck to the same sort of list I'm stuck with. Like it's not like the world is your oyster, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's some, we're kind of straying all over the place here, but it's an interesting design decision, I think, that was made long ago that's just carried through.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like we've talked a lot about how like we think cleric lists should be specific towards their domain. Like the domain should be the meat and potatoes, and then maybe a couple extra spells get tossed in on top of it for roundedness. But it's the reverse of that. You get everything, and then you get a couple little spells for your domain, which just seems really backwards to me. And then likewise, you know, with these other things like your sorcerer, it feels like you should be themed as a sorcerer, right? Like, oh, you're a demon sorcerer. Okay, well, you should have like fire stuff and like corruption and like strength things.
I know, but everything they're doing with every edition of D&D and every edition of Pathfinder, everything that seems to come out is whittling away more and more of the idea that any of the classes are actually themed. Like they got Paladin away from lawful good. They put out 4 different brands of Paladins. So like some of them are just champions of whatever. Some of them are hellbent on vengeance. Some of them are actually taking an oath. You know, like it's, if you want to play the old school Paladin, it's still there as one of the options. But it's like they keep kind of whittling it down to be other things.
So
like I feel like,
because you don't like that, I actually think that is a massive increase in character concept choices.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that that's the direction they're going. So when you say something like sorcerers should be pigeonholed into this, you're like fiery doom and death. Like that's the opposite direction they're going with everything else in the game.
No, I don't agree, because they're taking, like, say, the Paladin. This is an example of what I was reading in Pathfinder 2, is that they've changed Paladin to champion. Well, what the hell is a champion?
Right.
Well, it's the champion of a deity. What alignment do they have to be? Well, they match their deity. And so they have tenets and then, you know, things that they swear to. And there's a theme that is associated with that deity. And it's still this is a, you know, divine warrior for that god. Cool. That's a bunch of different slices of meat. And I think that's more choices. Same thing with a sorcerer. If you're talking about, you know, your celestial sorcerer versus your demon sorcerer versus your serpentine sorcerer, those should all feel like distinct things to me. They should fit a niche. They're all sorcerers, but those sorcerers should be distinct from one another. You know, what they do.
I haven't looked at sorcerer in 5e enough to really know if that's the case or not. Like,
I know that like in the same level as a cleric, they get a little splash here and there of like, here's a free spell or an ability, but then they still get the list.
Because I know, like with my druid circle, like every couple levels, I'm getting free, essentially water spells. That makes sense because I'm a coastal druid. So I got Misty Step, and I have, you know, freedom of movement, and I have water breath, and, you know, these things. So, I mean, yeah, those are the extra little splash I'm getting for being a circle of the coast versus a moon, where I'd be taking extra wild shapes and getting bigger CR worth of forms, things like that. So, I mean, to me, like most of the classes I've looked through, I feel like there is some distinction between them. I don't feel like they're all too close together where you're not making that distinction.
There's some. I mean, I just think that the amount that is not themed versus themed is inverted for my taste.
Well, I feel like every book they put out a new list of options for some of them too. Like, I mean, I think that it just hasn't. Content creep has been slower for 5th ed than what I would have imagined. I think like there's not as many for as long as it's been out now. There's not as many books out for 5th ed as I would have imagined. There's a lot of good modules out there, but there's not a lot of like resource books. Not as many as I would imagine.
Was it 2013, 2014, somewhere there?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Maybe. I think it's been about 5 years. I think
somebody tell us we're wrong. Fix this.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there is just a difference in style, obviously, and I think it was intentional. Like, I think if you're bringing in new players, hey, Fruitzilla, thanks for the bits there, buddy. Well, good seeing
Fruitzilla's back. Welcome back, Fruitzilla.
He's got to see it.
He's got a rival up there on the bits board these days. He's like at the arcade, right? And somebody puts in the corner. It's like a new challenger has arrived.
Absolutely. But I think there's a difference in design philosophy that is good, as we talked about in the past, for bringing in new players and bringing players who are less interested in deep dives into complex, crunchy games, right? Like it fits a niche that needed to be filled.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very happy it's there for the players that prefer that sort of thing. Like it sounds like, you know, it doesn't sound like it is true that Levi prefers 5th ed because it's more suited to his style.
It's really sort of more suited to mine too.
And I think it's probably easier to run a 5th ed game than a Pathfinder game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I think it's a lot more clear and simple in that you have a lot less things to think about in terms of what can the player do and what can't they do.
I'm running a 5th ed game at my game shop every other Sunday, and we've had like 5 sessions. And one was a brand new player who's never played D&D before. One was another player who hasn't played D&D in 15 or more years. And within 3 game sessions, they all fully understand their characters, what they could do, and they're playing right on par with everyone else who's been playing every day of their life for 20 years. Like you can't tell which people are the new people other than the character names, because, you know, everyone has that first character name that's just cringeworthy.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So that's the only way you can pick them out if I showed you the character sheets.
Well, that's good. Yeah, and I think what you're saying there is that balance is impossible in Pathfinder. Yeah, I think that's a carryover from the structure and some of the fundamental flaws of the 3-point whatever engine, right? It was a revolution and amazing thing when it came out, but there were certain things that were inherent to the system that you learned over time, what the quote-unquote meta is of 3rd ed, that slowly created some issues, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Pathfinder was eventually, in my opinion, a victim of its own success. Like it started out as a better version of 3.5. It started out as an alternate to 4.0, which everyone hated, and then
not true.
Well, I mean, most people hate it.
A lot of people.
A lot of people hate it, and then I know Chuck's going to yell now that I said that, but
I love that.
I played it the other day. Chuck killed me. It was fun, but so it's true. But then I think because of that and the open game license, like it's just books and books started pouring in, and people loved and latched on because Pathfinder did fix a lot of problems in 3.0 and 3.5. Like, and there was a lot of anger over the second set of books on 3.5 coming back out and having to repurchase a whole new set of books because that was kind of before digital was really a thing. And so then it was just this massive push of everyone jumping to Pathfinder and Pathfinder Society coming out, and, you know, just more and more feats and everything just getting pumped out, you know, and eventually it just, in my opinion, it just got too bloated, and it became a victim of that popularity over time. Like then it was like anytime you want to do something, you could like search through 20,000 different books and like find the one feat you need here and the one other thing you need there to like essentially create things that were never intended to be created together.
Yeah, but that's also a place where you can just say, hey, I'm running a game. I open up to these 5 books. You know, where it got weird is when you went to the character builders and you pulled it up and you hit the feats list and all of a sudden you couldn't find the bottom of it.
Right. Yeah.
That got pretty daunting, even for somebody who likes crunch.
And you're just sitting there going, next page, next page, next page.
Yeah. So, yeah, I could see how that's an issue. But what I do like about Pathfinder, and in particular the new version Pathfinder, which I'm still reading, I haven't finished it up, but every single level you have something that you're adding or making a choice on. So like it may be, this is the level for general skill feats. Like it's just baked in, everyone gets some kind of skill related thing at this level. Cool. So you don't feel like you're missing out on a combat thing. You can take a cool, flavorful choice and it's not going to screw you over. Like it's just a good thing. It rounds out your character. Awesome. Hey, this level, you're modifying how your race stuff is done. So you're getting into more heritage stuff. Like what is your ancestry like? Okay, you are this type of dwarf and you grew up in this kind of environment. So now you have this ability. Cool. You know, so like the whole time you're kind of carving out and making choices.
Congratulations, your dwarf just hit puberty and now he can see in the dark. Like, I don't know. To me, that part makes no sense. But I mean, it's cool they're letting you do that. But to me, it's like some of those things seem like they should be kind of more inherent if you're playing an adult character already. Like, I don't feel like dark vision should kick in your 40s. Like, I don't think it just seems kind of strange to me. But
yeah, I don't think that's one of the things that happens. But I think it's more of like getting your dwarven fighting goblins or something. You know, like the bonus you get for giant fighting and stuff.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
You know. So like as you kind of go through the list, you're like, oh, okay, now I've encountered some shit. You know, I figured it out.
I was watching videos on it today because obviously I don't have the book yet, and they were talking about how like stuff that you used to get baked into your like race initially was like now just spread out over feats over the course of your 20 levels. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird. So I was imagining like, hey, this is where elves get 5 feet faster. Ooh, like,
well, it's the things that were like techniques or skill based. Those things kind of seem like they're kicking in over time, and you still get a lot more stuff, but it's like you're getting more of like, what is your culture? Whoa, what is that? There's
we have a gift sub thanks to Fruitzilla.
Whoa. All right, so Fruitzilla just gifted
the 5 tier 1 defenders of Kobold. Man, Fruitzilla laying down.
Oh, man.
Holy cow.
That is amazing. I just saw the entire
okay, so I wasn't going to talk about this, but since it just happened, I feel like now I have to. With those 5 gifted subs, we just passed 25 subs, which means we just opened another emote. We opened an emote. We actually passed 1 marker on Saturday's Everstorm game, and now we had a new emote me and Clint were just talking about before we went live, and now thanks to Fruitzilla, we just hit a second one. So now we have to make 2 new emotes. So
which ones we got? We got the ones coming out so far. We've got the botch symbol. We've got Clint's face doing the happy like hug laugh, and we have the nat 20. Is that the 3 we have right now?
Well, yeah, we got the nat 1, the nat 20, and Clint's face. I think are the 3 that are currently out there somewhere, right?
Fantastic. Well, we'll have to come up with some new ones here
tonight. But I'm currently lobbying for a Jason's mom emote. So we'll
yeah, if you guys don't know what that reference is about, the most recent game we just played over the weekend, we had a bunch of new faces that came in. Some of them are here tonight, which is pretty awesome. And one of them was somebody going by Jason, and apparently Jason's mom was not a fan of us cussing, and that was getting pretty unruly. And apparently Jason was going to be grounded if we didn't stop cussing.
Yeah.
So we had to, pay attention to when he was here, when he wasn't here, and or when she was here and when she wasn't there, rather, and try to clean it up. And we thought it was a joke for a while there, but it started to sound a little bit more real as time went on. So we're thinking about making like one of those hurricane force charts and putting it on the side of the game.
Threat level, like terrorist threat level, like threat level orange.
Yeah. Elevated, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that may be something.
But anyway, again, thank you, Fruitzilla, for the subs. We'll definitely get working on those emotes soon, guys. So thank you guys for all the support.
Yeah, that was huge. And since we're on the subject, I guess, we did just finish up those other goals recently, and that included giving away some dice. So you want to announce who won those?
Yeah, actually, I think
one of them's here in the chat.
So I think I saw one of them in the chat.
Yep.
I mailed them out today, so they're in the mail to the addresses that they gave me. So hopefully they get there. That's out of my control now. I have the receipt from the post office so that I can track them and see if they get where they're going. But for our first 200 followers, we did a random number between 1 and 200 on a random number generator and got 115, and that number corresponded to Bislab, and he was the winner of the I think it was like, what is it, cobalt blue and gold Die Hard dice set. And
awesome
then when we hit our official sub mark after Saturday night's game, we're up to 21 subs, and we did a random number between 1 and 21, and it was Travante, one of our new subs, that won the black and gold.
It's freaking awesome.
So I mailed both of those out today.
I'm pretty envious. I can't wait till the live game to get my actual Die Hard die. And if you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out. We got it in the panels down below. You have some freaking awesome dice. Oh, it's right here. It's right there.
There it is. I'll even hold it up so you can see it close.
Yeah, it's the one for Skeezer. It's hard to see in there, but that one's got like kind of some how would you describe that? It's
rainbow.
Like pearlescent almost?
Yeah, it's pearlescent. Yeah, it's just rainbow. Like every little side of it. I'd take it out of the bag, but I don't want to corrupt it.
Yeah, please, thank you. And they're nice and heavy. They're pretty awesome. So that was a good chance to plug that. It was nice. So anyway, back to complaining about systems. So like for the chat audience here. Oh, you love it, I know. But for the audience out here in the chat, you guys have any hardcore opinions on leveling systems? Comparing more complex, crunchy games where you make a lot of choices versus the ones where you like 5th Ed, where you kind of get a prepackaged set from the start. You just kind of unlock it as it goes. I'd be kind of curious to see what like kind of the split is in our chat right now.
It's amazing the amount of people that are headed towards rule light systems, like not just 5e, but like I know like Jasmine was talking, like he was running towards like tiny dungeons and these other things that are really like rules light. So there's a big push for that right now. And I think I just think it depends a lot on you know, like I think every once in a while you can do a campaign that's mechanics heavy. And then by the time you're done with that campaign, if you're somebody who DMs a lot, I think at that point, then you're ready for a few rules light games. You're just burned out. You're like, I need rules light, or I need to be a player somewhere, you know, like it's, I think it's one of those sorts of.
Yeah. For me, I mean, just kind of looking at the way people are going, I think there are a lot of people who like to do one-shot games. And in those, crunch heavy games make no sense.
Right.
For
sure. Yeah.
If you're just doing get a group of people together, have a good laugh, screw around, get through a little mission, do that sort of thing. You don't want a crunchy game. Likewise, if you're the type that doesn't really do any dice rolls and you just want to do character stuff, you don't need a crunchy system for that. Right. And so I think there's a lot of people that kind of favor, fluffier games. But for me, like if I played a long time, I want to have a lot of choices. I want to have different things that I can do. Otherwise, it gets stale over time for me. And, different people have different tastes, I guess. Yeah. But for me, I get a lot of enjoyment out of personifying a character, developing a character's personality, coming up with the concepts and all that stuff. But I also get a ton of enjoyment out of the actual crunch of the game. Not so much the combat necessarily, which is maybe odd, but I like prepping for the combat more than combat. Which seems strange, right? I like the thought game of it.
So are you feeling like you're missing the buff schemes that we used to have in first ed? Is that what you're missing in 5e, maybe to a degree? Like, here's my 5 wands. I want to cast haste. I want to cast bless. I want to cast remember we used to have a macro that would just tell us what all of our damn buffs work. So we had so fucking many of them going into game. Sorry, Jason's mom, if you're out there, but I just got sorry about that.
Mom's getting super pissed at us. No, I don't really like the numbers necessarily. I think there was a fair criticism of Pathfinder being, Mathfinder. But I do like the idea of synergy in the group and coming up with things that kind of combo well, things that interconnect characters together. I like strategy. I like being able to look at a setup and an environment and adapt to it. And when I have 3 things I can do, by the mechanics, I go, hell, everything has to be a freaking nail now because I got a hammer and the back of a hammer and the side of a hammer. Okay, I'm going to hammer it, I guess, Yeah, whereas with the other systems, I felt like I had a grab bag of things I can do. When I found something in the environment, I was like, this might work. Maybe. I think I got a tool for that. Let's try it. And I felt like I was exploring more things in those systems than I feel like I can fit that. Maybe
I need to try a couple other classes. Maybe this just purely is just a matter of me playing Druid, because I really, really do feel like I've got a whole fucking world at my fingertips of what I want to do. Just wild shape alone. Because I'm not limited. That's the kind of thing that I would imagine would be limited. Where they're like, okay, listen, Druid, you're level 4. You can have up to 4 different wild shapes you can take. None of them can swim or fly yet. Work with that. But that's not the case. It's nah, man, anything below this CR, you can totally do it.
Yep.
So I've got 20 some animal forms listed. And I didn't even take them all. I just took the ones I thought Bowen would know about on the coast. And there's
and I think some of it, we were talking about earlier, I think some of the issue is a concept I like in theory, but I'm not as jazzed about in execution, and that's concentration, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So the concentration effect, if you don't know about it in 5th ed, is actually a pretty cool concept. So there are certain spells that are more powerful that they require you to really focus on, and you can only have one spell that you're focusing on. So you concentrate on it, and if you make another concentration spell, the first one ends. Great idea. Keeps from, getting those crazy min-max combos. Yeah. You have to make some choices there.
AKA all the spells of mine worth taking. Concentration.
Right. The issue I have with it is that if it was a few really potent spells and then you had a bunch of spells that didn't have concentration that were good, but not amazing, then I would be okay, cool. Concentration's great. I'm going to use these other ones. And then every once in a while I'm going to bust this thing out and it's going to be freaking awesome,
Yeah.
But every time I go to my list, it's like 90% of the spells feel like they're concentration effects.
I think where if they went anywhere wrong with concentration, I think it's the self buffs that are concentrate. Because for me as a druid, like with my spell list, if all of my spells that were AoE CCs weren't all concentration, I could dominate an entire map just by myself with CC, and you, as the other guy wanting to do CC, would have no job.
Like, yeah. Well, this is the problem that we had in Pathfinder, right? Is that a lot of these spells that didn't have concentration those days.
So it's nice that I have to pick between Fog Cloud or Entangle, or you know, like I have all those different spells I can do, but I have to pick which one of them is the most important for me and drop it in an area where it'll be the most useful. And then the Warlock can drop his Hunger of Hadar in another spot and maintain it over there. And then we can, between me, you, and him, we can lock down a fair amount of map. So there's synergy there between us because of concentration. And that way concentration works well. It doesn't let me spend 3 rounds dropping X, Y, and Z, and then you guys being forced to just lob fireballs and Eldritch Blast all the live long day. So it does give us that niche. Where I think it goes wrong is that then I have to decide, like, well, do I want to have stone skin or bark skin? I'm sorry, that's a concentration effect. Clearly, I'm not walking into battle with that one, like, because I don't even take it because I know I'm going to take the CC ones, like. So, you know, I think that's where it kind of goes wrong, is with some of the self buffs.
Yeah, it's a little tricksy. Like, I think it works if you're doing a traditional dungeon crawl, right? So, like, if you're expecting to have a lot of small fights, you toss on a concentration effect and you just ride into the sunset. That's the only thing you do that fight, you know? Okay, sure, it's a short fight, you know? Maybe last like 3 or 4 rounds, you're out. You don't need a lot of spells, so it conserves your spell slots. Cool. But what I find, and maybe it's just the nature of how often we get to play, that we have to condense everything in a session. So our standard is 1 fight in a given time period, and it's usually a pretty epic, huge fight. So I feel like we're kind of built to shotgun, you know, in the way our encounter designs are going.
Well, we definitely don't do dungeon crawls.
Right.
That's for sure. Like, I couldn't tell you the last time we did a room by room dungeon crawl, like in one of Levi's games. Like, I don't know if it's ever happened.
We did it. Didn't we do that last? Well, we kind of did it in the Pirate Cove.
Yeah, it was like 2 rooms. Yeah. It wasn't much, but I mean, it was the closest we've had to a dungeon crawl. But
yeah, the pig hole.
Yeah, the pig people was kind of the maybe. Yeah, you're right. That might have been the closest to a true dungeon crawl.
That was a hardcore dungeon crawl.
Was the muck hole. But regardless, those are very rare events for us. Most of ours are open land, you know, battles. So I think it does change the way we prep for battles a lot, in the way we play. Like,
yeah, sure. I think it'll change our evaluation of certain things. Like, I think in older games, in old Pathfinder, classes like the Fighter, which were designed to be all-day classes, didn't really do well because, you know, the limitation for our wizards in those days was you've only got so many spell casts. Well, yeah, I've got more spells than there are possibly going to be rounds in this fight. So like, I can go all in on everything. Of course, I'm going to come out more powerful.
Sure.
You know?
Same problem we used to have with 4E, right? When your utilities and counter powers were used every single combat, you didn't have to make the decision on whether you wanted it or not.
Well, it's the daily thing, I think, is like, if there's one design choice I think they got really wrong in some of these games, is that they have kind of dictated how many things should happen in a day. Right. Like, how many encounters are you supposed to have? Well, I think they should completely get away from those concepts of dailies, and the Vancian magic system, I think, is got its problems, and for that very same reason. I mean, it works if you're playing a module, I guess, but
and they're in the module selling business. Like, let's be fair. They are in the module selling business, and their number one fan base is other DMs writing modules for other DMs to run. So that's like the cornerstone of what D&D is.
True.
Like, we're the oddballs. We forget that we're the oddballs.
I suppose so. Speaking of oddballs, our chat is talking about some crazy stuff right now. So we had
paying attention for a second. What do we got?
Well, we got some comments here about. Well, first of all, we have a chatter I don't recognize. Maybe I haven't seen his name before, but JNove 36 is talking about they've been playing since 81. Old school.
I've seen JNove lurking around on Jowsum and Chuck's channels. So he's
Gotcha. He was saying from 81, or I'm assuming he, maybe not, but saying that they got burned out on Dungeons and Dragons over those years because, same thing over the course of 30 odd years. You might want to be looking for something fresh. That makes sense. But the thing that really jumped out at me was Fruitzilla saying, "Oh yeah, I found 43 Dungeons and Dragons books in great condition on top of a dumpster at the end of my block."
Wow.
What?
So he sold them all and he just donated all the subs. That's what just happened. We just got the whole story.
That is phenomenal. And if I'm not mistaken, Fruitzilla and I are in the same city. I need to figure out where his block is.
You're in the wrong dumpster.
Yeah. Man, that's wild.
That is wild. That's us 43. That's such a strange number too. Wow.
Probably all fourth ed.
He also got 10 boxes of baseball cards. Man, that's a treasure trove of a dumpster, I suppose.
That's somebody who lost a fight with a girlfriend.
Yeah. or somebody who went on vacation a little too long.
Oops. Yep.
Came back and all their stuff was gone.
Man. So yeah, I think kind of getting back to it, I think there are some elements that maybe are less of an issue in other styles of games. Like I think we tend to not do as many traps and skill check things. So I think classes like the Rogue are undervalued and are kind of set up. Whereas like we also don't tend to do, like we said before, like tracking and hunting and overland travel very much. I mean, we do it, but we kind of say like we're there.
It's kind of rare. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it just doesn't appeal to a lot of the players in our groups, right? So
you could have one where you'd be like, well, it took you 5 days instead of 7. Well,
yeah.
And most of the time you're not in that, what I like to always quote as the Final Fantasy VII scenario where the meteors come and hit. Like
you'll never let that one live down.
I never let it live down, but that's my go-to scenario if you don't have that situation. So 5 or 7 days usually doesn't change too much in your game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are games though I've seen people play where they spend enormous amounts of time walking around hexes, exploring the forest, getting lost out in the jungle and trying to deal with all the random ramifications that come up. And for a lot of groups, that's what they get into. So in that kind of scenario, a ranger would be freaking amazing. But it's not our style, so we don't do it. Whereas, classes like the more classic fighter, barbarian, wizard, cleric, bard. Bard obviously gets a lot of love because our DM is obsessed with bards. These classes get a lot of appeal and play. Kind of lost the thread of where I was going with that. So back on to kind of like level up kind of scenarios here. I think there are just certain qualities of 5th ed that are creating a weird pressure on leveling. Like where certain classes feel a lot more robust, certain ones don't. And some of it's due to the mechanics, in terms of what your choices are. I get more choices as spells, but I can't use most of them in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, and I think some of I think where you were going with it is some of that's compounded maybe for us by our play style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think that vice versa, people who are running Tomb of Annihilation might feel completely opposite. Like things that we don't mind could potentially be a problem for people running that style. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of a game might be an issue. Like, so to me, when I'm looking at the system, like I try to keep in mind that there are these different various styles of play that can be done. Like we talk about, they're all valid. Like we're not suggesting one way is better than another. It's just your group is what your group is. Right. But so I guess the question is what do you want your system to do the most? And how are you actually designing your game to be played? Mm-hmm. And what is the intent? And people who are going to play outside of that intent, I think just have to understand that maybe they're going to run into some kind of quagmires that they have to figure out how to handle and traverse as just players playing a game.
Right. But again, there's a lot of different game systems in the world.
Sure. Yeah.
If you're finding a game doesn't fit the style that you're looking for, there's probably a game that does, as we've discussed before. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we never play 5th ed. I'm just saying that there are certain things about 5th ed that really aren't doing it for me. Like,
okay, so let me ask you this though: we're in a 5th ed game,
yeah,
and Levi's games, if nothing else, are long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we hit level 7, And I think he's planning on running this thing close to level 20.
That's what he said the other day. Yep.
And if you count out about 6 games to hit level from 6 to 7, and if I don't know if he's staggering up more for like if it's 6 games to level 7, is it 7 games to level 8, 8 games to level 9? You start doing the math on that. I mean, that's like 60 some game sessions.
It's a lot of game sessions.
When you think about 1 or 2 times a month, that's multiple years. You're talking about years from now before Everstorm can be done. So if that's the case, like at what point do you just want off the train?
Just throw me right in there, huh?
Yeah, just
this setup is
that's
just
what
like,
I'm saying. Just
get out there and punch your DM in the face.
No, it's not punching the DM because it ain't his fault. If you don't like a system, he didn't write the system. It's not a Levi's system.
I feel like 5th Ed for me, there was some interesting stuff to it initially because it was new. The novelty of it's worn off rather quickly for me. To me, 5th Ed feels like a very well wrapped present, but there's actually not a box or any contents in it. That's what it feels like to me. So like I got into it, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be cool. And I opened the bow and it just opened up and there was nothing in it. And I don't know, like that works for a short period of time for me, but I think the actual system itself doesn't really appeal to me. I love my characters. I love the game itself. I love the story we're going through. I love the experience of playing with the group. Just the actual game system itself does not appeal to me. I mean, I'll play it, but I don't feel like I would want to play another campaign in 5th Ed. I guess.
So you think like this one be it, and you'd be like, I'm done?
I mean, if people decided that's what we're going to run again, I'd play it, but I wouldn't be excited about it.
That's fair.
I would be happy about the game because, I mean, if Levi runs a game, I'm going to fucking love it. It's going to be a great game. But, you know, there are certain things like we played Mutants back in the day. Or not Mutants, what was it called?
I made a game called Mutants, but that's not the one you're talking about.
Yeah, the official Marvel one. I had a good time with Marvel. Like the actual game system itself sucked. Like I hated that system. But the game itself was awesome. You're welcome, Levi. Yeah, I want to make sure, Levi, I'm not complaining about you as a DM. I'm complaining about the role-playing system that we happen to have picked for this particular campaign. But yeah, I mean, there's just different things that appeal to people. And like for that one, I think Marvel, we did a great job having a great game. We had cool characters again. I just completely checked out anytime system was involved. Like I lost all enjoyment during those points. So long as I stuck with just the role playing, I had a good time. But as soon as the game system came into it, I was like, meh, let's get through this.
That's how I was pretty much every first Ed Pathfinder game ever.
Yeah.
Like anything past about level 8, like it just got to where, like I was saying earlier in our discussion, I was like, it was fine when we were all at a table. Because Cameron was taking his 25 whip attacks, I could hang out with Jeff and talk about something else while we were waiting for Cameron to figure out all the math on his 25 whip attacks with Altius guy whip, And so, for me, like it didn't matter when we were together because we were eating taquitos and hanging out and having a good time, waiting for our turn to come around on the table. And then when it would hit our turn, I'd be like, okay, so wait, I missed what was going on there because he was doing math for the last half hour, like. So is that guy dead? Okay, cool. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to start my 15 attacks on this guy. Well, now Jeff talks to Cameron, so it wasn't a big a deal. But I think when we're online, like I noticed it a lot with the last Pathfinder campaign where like when I'm sitting here at home, right, and we weren't streaming at this point in time. So this is pre-stream for anyone who's trying to look back or anything. But we were playing over Discord and playing on, or in some cases, Google Hangouts, I think, even there for a while. And playing on Roll20, where we couldn't really have any side chats. We couldn't have any cross banter. So it was literally like, I mean, thank God we had macros set up, or it could have been even worse. But like, there were times where by the time my roll came back around, I'd been doing something on the other screen, hanging out, doing other things, have a kid come in to talk to me for something. Like, I was... I would just combat completely threw me out of the game completely. Like,
yeah, I think we run into those issues because of the technology more so than anything. Because I think when we don't have access to Roll20's macro system, we didn't have as complex a characters because you looked at it and you went, I can't roll that many dice. It's going to take too long. And there's a lot of things you could do to speed up play, like have all of your stats ready to go, have everything already added up, figure out what you're going to do regularly, have those things consistently set up. And no matter what system, there's always going to be decision paralysis that occurs sometimes for certain players.
Right.
I think Pathfinder definitely had more chances for that to go wrong, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it wasn't a big deal until we started doing it over a long distance.
No, and that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I agree completely, because when we were there at a table, like it was not a big deal. Like I remember it not being nearly as big a deal. Like we would, because we had so many other things we'd sit around and shoot the shit about while trying not to be disruptive, obviously.
Or, like two people are planning what they're going to do next. Like, oh, I think, maybe we'll do this and this. Oh, yeah, what about that? Okay.
And we had a larger group, too. It'd be like 9 of us playing.
Yeah.
Like
how we did that, I don't know. Like that old Exalted game I had was, I think, 9 players, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And, I would take like 2 or 3 of you guys, do a little side scene. The other guys are talking, doing their thing. And then like they'd be running a little scene with themselves. And then we come back, okay, what happened? We would okay, and move on to the next. But you can't do that with Discord. So yeah, there are certain things that kind of play out. Let's see. What are the questions here? Group dynamic is everything. That's for sure.
Here's a good one coming from our DM. He says, what system is king for Jeff?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of criticism of game systems, if that's not evident. But that's because I'm really interested in game design. Like I find the choices in there very interesting because they create very different worlds and experiences. Pathfinder, for like I was saying before, when it came out, did a lot of things better than what was already there. So it was a marked improvement. But like I said, we played for so long that I played pretty much every class and race combo I could find. Sorry about the street noise there, guys. Apparently people are hot rodding it down the street. But I kind of got bored with Pathfinder over time. And then some of the system flaws became just cumbersome and just problematic on the long term. I am really interested in what Pathfinder 2e is going to be. A lot of the things I like about 5th Ed are included in there from what I could see.
I was noticing that on videos today when I was watching. I was actually pleasantly surprised that watching initial reviews that it was very much like, hey, you get to do this, this, and this. And then it's kind of telling you what choices you get throughout the rest of your character. And I was like, oh, that's kind of strange. Like I wasn't expecting that. So that's cool. I'm hoping it's going to be a nice middle ground.
It's a lot faster from what I understand. Like everyone who's talked about combat in Pathfinder 2e said it's faster than other systems they played. And they were even stacking it up against 5e for speed. So I don't know what all they've done to simplify it, but apparently they've done quite a lot. But I do think that for me, I need a crunchier system to enjoy myself as much as I possibly can. Like I said, I can have fun in any game, but I need a certain amount of complexity and choice and options for me to feel like I'm getting everything I want to get in a game. I like a little bit of simulation. I like a little bit of gamism. I like a lot of narrativism. So like for me, like I liked 4th edition quite a bit. There were definitely some flaws to it. There were some issues for certain, but I really liked that as a change of pace from Pathfinder or from or compared to 5th Ed. I strongly prefer 4th Ed to 5th Ed. Just my own personal taste. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping Pathfinder 2e will be the system for me, but I haven't read it enough to be able to definitively say one way or the other. But I would say I would prefer, like I said, I think 4th Ed is better than 5th Ed. I think 4th Ed and Pathfinder for me, had I not played Pathfinder as long as I had, Pathfinder would probably be slightly edging it out, but I really like 4th Ed. So yeah. I'm the oddball out, I guess.
It took me about 2 games of playing 4th Ed to remember why I don't particularly like 4th Ed. But yeah, no, I really like the way 5th Ed plays. I'm hoping Pathfinder can be a step back away from it a little more for us towards some of the stuff that'll help keep guys like you and Clinton, maybe even Cam, a little more engaged in it. Like I said, I see the arguments. Like I'm not like blind to it. I think that it's the way that it's designed and built. It just gives you so much more up front. Mm-hmm. Where I think like if you play in a game to level 8 or 10, like you at least feel like you played with most of the options your character had, like because you get so much of it in the first like 3 levels. You know,
I mean, we've also disagreed on the level band when we enjoy things. Like for me, like I do not like levels 1 through 3. Period. Like I hate that time in the game. 4th through 12 is the sweet spot for me.
Yeah,
like, all that chunk in there is beautiful. You know, above that, I don't really like it. It gets a little crazy.
See, we're actually more in line there where you think, because I'm roughly in that same band. Like I don't mind level 1 to 3. Level 1 gets annoying.
Rocket tag.
Level one will annoy me. Yeah, if you exit one bad move and you're, you know.
Yeah, it's rocket tag. You don't have any options of things you can do, and it's just.
Well, that's the thing though. 5th ed, you actually do. You actually got like more options than what a normal character has, like in most other systems.
Yeah, I mean, you can ad lib in any system, but in 5th ed, it's just like attack it. What do you do? I attack it. Okay, what are you gonna do? Shoot a cantrip at it. You know,
I don't know. I mean, so a lot of these classes have more options than that. It might just be a pure wizard thing right there for you, my friend. But
I don't know. I don't imagine a lot of fighters level 1 are doing anything besides attacking and moving.
A level 20 ain't doing anything more than just attacking and moving, Jeff. That's fighter.
Yeah. I mean, they start having things like, you know, the battle commander or the eldritch knight, or I mean, that's true for the champion. But that's by design. The champion is supposed to be
the most used one there is.
Is it?
Crit builds. Oh yeah, baby. Everybody loves their crit builds.
If you're
not the two-handed paladin, you're the champion crit build swing-o-matic fighter. I mean, that's
I would be bored to tears.
So would I. That's why I don't play one. But
I love me a fighter. I cannot stand what do I got? Oh, just some bonuses.
Yep.
Awesome.
But you like to watch. You like to watch things die and big numbers happen. There you go.
That's a crit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I do kind of miss is World of Darkness games.
Oh, that's why I love Zweihander.
Yeah.
Zweihander is like a new World of Darkness for me. God, I'm loving reading the book. It's so great.
Yeah. I think I would need to sit down and look at the book myself. Like, I mean, I know you've been quoting some stuff out of it and putting on the chat, but I need to like look at a system in totality.
Oh yeah,
to go back and forth, look at things, and
I'm hoping this one shot will give you a little taste of some of the various things and the way that some of it works. But I really, 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 really like the way Zweihander plays. From what from my limited experience with it and reading through the book, like
I'll be interested. I mean, I'll be stuck at work until like around this time tomorrow night, so I'm going to miss almost all of it. But I'll definitely check it out. I mean, I do like the idea of a low fantasy game. I know that doesn't appeal to Clint. He's a very high fantasy guy. But I do like the grittier style as a change up. I mean, I do like the high fantasy too, but I think the low fantasy offers something that's the consequences are just more real. The choices of a character are more natural.
Yeah.
Whereas in D&D, like the standard high fantasy, it's like, what do you do? I run in and just stick my chest in the air and punch the dragon in the mouth. And you're like, yeah, that's probably what you do. You know?
Yeah, you don't do that in Zweihander. No.
Nope.
You don't.
So I don't know. I kind of like that aspect of the old World of Darkness, where you had a lot of decisions were in the how you encounter and deal with the setting, you know, and like how you integrate with that. Whereas setting is important in terms of flavor and descriptions and that kind of stuff in Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't feel like it's the same as it is in a grittier kind of setting.
So Zweihander is kind of the first system since World of Darkness I've looked at where I feel like you can tackle moral questions in a sense.
And why?
Well, because of the way the game is kind of set up and designed, you are trying to think of the best way to put this. Like so many of the character classes are things that, I guess are like classes that you would never see in almost any other kind of game. Like, and you have this thing called peril where basically you take like mental damage. Like the more scary, brutal, horrific things that happen to you, you take mental damage and your skills become harder to use because of it.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
you get this. It helps reflect this like sense of dread.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a good way of like not everything is physical damage. Like not everything's hit point damage. Like you get hit by a mind flare and it does psychic damage. It's just deleting your hit points. Same as if you got hit by a sword. But this one, it very distinctly makes a difference between like these horrible things that are happening around you and what it does to you versus losing an arm. So
interesting.
And the way you recover from things, the fact that there's no magic healing.
Yeah,
like,
I like,
things like that.
Like
you have to deal with the consequences of what you did. Every character kind of starts the game with like, unless you roll that you're really young, like everybody has like distinguishing marks, and most of them are like horrific scars and shit that happen to you from your just everyday life. So like you just start out like kind of half maimed, and like it's just the whole way they don't even have like a true full setting like developed for this thing yet, but I think they're working on some of that stuff, but like just the core game, when you read through it, you're just like, man, this stuff is brutal. Like it's a very brutal game.
Has more of that Conan feel, I imagine.
Yeah, maybe.
That sort of sorcery style.
Yeah, a little bit, because there is some sorcery still in there. There is divine magics. There is still arcane like magics. They're just very different in the way that they work.
Yeah, I think for me the issue, the one thing that really bugs me about Dungeons and Dragons is, a great sword does average 7 damage plus strength. So it's like you do 7 damage to somebody, you're bisecting them with a great sword. Like that is a straight up you're freaking dead kind of move. Well, until you're level 2 or you're level 10. Now you can get hacked with the same sword like 10 times. And you're just like, meh. Like I have a hard time with hit points, I guess. I know it's an abstraction. It means different things like being exhausted or whatever, but I don't like hit points as a mechanic.
Well, Zweihander, welcome back to health levels.
Yep.
So there you go. That's what you got to look forward to.
So
but
like Lab was saying, B/X is still my D&D go-to. I should know what that is, but I don't know what that is. So maybe you can tell me. I was like, Red Box? No.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
Can't remember what that is. Sorry to cut you off there. I kept staring at that.
No,
like, what the heck does that mean?
I saw that too, and I was going to comment on it, but I wasn't sure what it was. So
basic.
I don't know if he's still there. There it is.
What does that mean?
Basic.
Well, basic would be the original red and blue boxes, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, there it is. Yeah. The original red. Okay. Yeah. I mean, do you play a lot of classical dungeon crawls? Because I think that's the red box is definitely dungeon crawl game. Like
he's been running a podcast. They've been streaming not streaming, but podcasting their D&D games for like 10 years.
Huh. Well, I mean, some people still, obviously rock the hell out of that. Like we're talking to Stefan Picorni, and obviously he plays first edition, period. So different styles, I guess. Like I know there's that huge revival of the old school movement or whatever it's called, which is great for those who love it. We've kind of touched on it.
Dungeon crawl classics, all that stuff. Chuck's out there, I'm sure, if he's still watching.
For me, that is like
a shout out for Chuck.
Immediately be like, I could do like one game session of that, I think, and then I would be done. But it's a different thing. Yeah, that's for sure. If I treated it like I was playing Warhammer Fantasy, like this is a tactical game, I'm just going for it, I think I would have fun with it. But if I was trying to like actually get into a game like a campaign, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah,
it would just the life out of me.
Yeah, it's different. Like I think there's a different philosophy, and like I think there's a different philosophy between like you coming to a game with a character concept in mind, and you sitting down at a table making a bunch of rolls and seeing what
having a character happen to you.
To a degree,
old school games felt like they told you what you were doing, and you just kind of rolled with it. Yeah, the dice told you everything,
And Zweihander gets a little bit of that when it starts. Like you make a bunch of rolls, and it's like, hey, this is kind of where you start. But then, like pretty quickly it starts giving you the control back on what you want to do with it after that. So
BizLab is saying that he hears folks say that the rules are not having much of the rule systems, say they can't do much, but he's saying that the lack of rules is what allows you to do more.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
And that's what you were arguing before with the fifth ed idea.
Because I can punch, I can kick, I can do all kinds of stuff, and there's no rule there that somebody can bring out of a book and say you can't do that because you don't have this.
Yeah, I mean, but I get really annoyed with having to spend my entire game session going, Daddy, can I please allow me to sniff the rose a certain way? You know, like I don't like I don't like gambling and not gambling. What am I trying to say? I don't like having to negotiate every turn. Like, I think that drives me insane.
I don't ever feel like it was a negotiation. Like, I'm pretty sure if I walked up to a guy next game session, and I mean, Levi probably maybe is still in chat. We lost a few viewers there. Maybe he went to bed. I mean, he hasn't posted anything in a while. But I'm pretty sure if, like, Bowron just walked up the next combat and just took his trident, it was just like, I just want to leg sweep this wobbin. Levi'd be like, make an attack roll. Like, I don't think there'd be any question about it. Like, it'd just be like, okay.
There's technically a rule for that in fifth ed.
Well, I know, but I mean,
mechanics.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I mean, but the point is I don't have to have a feat in order to do it. I can just go up and do it.
Yeah, you don't need a feat in fifth ed, but I mean, I got to take your point. Yeah, I think it's a difference between people who are interested in, like, you know, we talk about the tent poles of narrative, gamism, and simulation, right? And people are usually at different points in that kind of window. I think the old school is very much a, you know, well, what is that one kind of tagging as? In some ways it was simulation, but not really. Yeah, I don't know how to really put that one in there now that I've kind of brought it up.
But he was saying, like, in the very first editions of D&D, the players didn't even roll a dice. The GM just told you if you did it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. I mean, and the old school style games definitely were more about what you as a player could figure out versus what your character was. So, like, the character wasn't important. It was just the vehicle through which the player injected its meta abilities through. You know, like, oh, where do you find the trap? Well, I don't know. Where did you look? In the third, you know, brick on the left from the staircase. Oh, okay. Yeah, you found it. Or nope, it's not that one. That's great if you want to test the player. And that's what we talk about a lot with, like, LARP role playing.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
And then there's an argument to be had on both ends of that. Like, there is something appealing about outsmarting a dungeon, but it also means you're playing you always with a couple different abilities. And I feel like that's less character-y than other editions ended up becoming. And, you know, I think that's the natural outcome of all these later systems, that you had more narrative and more personality injected into your characters. And it was less you, it was more an entity inside the game world doing things that you were controlling, but, you know, it had a life of its own in these later editions. Whereas I don't feel that way with the old school stuff.
I mean, some of that is just a matter of the player. Like, we've seen people that it doesn't matter what system you put them in, they're pretty much just playing themselves, you know, with, like, some people get more into it, the actory parts than others. Like, and that's just the difference. And I think in some players, like, I think you could probably say that for you. I don't know if I would say it's a universally true, but
well, I'm not saying anything's universally true.
Right.
Yeah, just for me, I think that it's definitely, I don't find those old school ones to be appealing to me for a long period of time. Like, I think, you know, early small sessions, you know, like, I'm gonna just get through this dungeon. Cool, what are we doing? Oh, I'm fighter guy. Cool, let's get in there. I got a hammer. Let's smash something. Cool. I'm gonna go play it like a board game. Let's rock it out. You know, I can get into that. But if we did that for more than a couple sessions, I would burn out pretty fast. So we beat this horse pretty hard.
I think we have. I think we've kind of beat it down to death. So
we want to get into party dynamics, the other thing we were talking about?
Yeah, why don't you kick us off, Jeff, and get the ball, head the direction you're wanting this one to go.
Sure. So today, in addition to complaining about leveling up, we were talking a lot about gelling between characters in a group. So
yeah, and this is
we've
not
had
players. This is characters. Just
Yeah,
so we make
characters.
sure that's perfectly clear before we start.
yeah, we as players get along really well. But when we're kind of putting such an emphasis on characters, character stories, and personalities and such, there's a tendency for some characters to get along better and worse with other characters. And we've had some parties where there was just an incredible amount of interconnectivity, players' goals and things aligned really well. Their personalities clicked. You know, they had things that really brought them together. They trusted each other. They wanted to go together. We've had other campaigns where the fated party that split up, there was nothing tying anyone together. And the first thing that went wrong, the whole thing splintered. And with this current group we're playing in the 5th ed game, we had a weird hodgepodge of characters that didn't really fit together. But we had one character in there, Wrighton, who seemed to be kind of an engine. Like, he pushed the moral side of things. There was an energy from that character. And there was a lot of dynamism between him and each of the other characters. So, like, Ballroom played off of Wrighton, Skeezer played off of Wrighton, Fulcrum played off of Wrighton, and Morgaine played off of Wrighton. So, like, that was the guy that connected all of us together. And then we had a switch where Clint decided he didn't want to play Wrighton anymore and he wanted to play Kodo. And suddenly that engine pulled out. And we had these 4 other characters that didn't really have a connection to each other. And we also lost our party face in that. So we're down 2 important concepts in a party, and there's not a real clear way of the way it needs to be fixed. And so the conversation I was wanting to have was, how much should you actually bend character concept a little or a lot to make sure that your group dynamic works enough to where the party has a reason to stick together and progress the story?
Well, I guess that is probably the question of the day for us, for sure. I think that I think what you have to ask yourself, and I think this is what happened with our last Pathfinder campaign when things went horribly awry, was I don't think that game, that party completely like disassembled because the characters didn't have enough tying them together. I think people were done playing those concepts and had wanted to move to other concepts. I think it was just a good point to cut those sheets that people had played and had tried their gimmick and their thing they wanted to do, and it had run its course, and they were just, I think they were just itching for something new to play anyway.
Maybe.
I think that this situation we're in is a little different situation than that. I think this is a situation where, like, I'm not ready to stop playing Bowron, but I guess for me, this is an opportunity to maybe start to reveal more about my character. He's been kind of shrouded in a lot of mystery. Like, most of what you guys know about Bowron is stuff that I kind of had to, like, basically just kind of come out and talk to you a bit about on an out of character level.
Yeah, we know it out of character. We don't know it in character.
Correct.
Or we have like a tiny touch of it.
Just a glimpse of it here and there. So I think there's opportunity where some of those things are going to come out. Like, if, I get to make a game session again.
Yeah, missing 2 in a row is brutal.
Yeah. So, that it may not happen for a while now, but I think that I don't really know how much anyone in our group really has to bend concept to really make this work.
Yeah, I don't think you have to bend concept too hard, but I think there are certain things we're being rigid about that is not allowing an easy connection. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's like places where you can be like, oh, we can just make this slight tweak and they would automatically just link up. Yeah, like, I think they could. Like, for example, one of the things we were talking about before is we have one of the characters, Fulcrum, is playing kind of an abomination stitched together by a mad, evil lich guy from the old campaign, where he's a mashup between a tiefling and an Azamar. So he's half sort of celestial, sort of demonic, or devil, I guess, kind of fused into one. So there's concepts of good and dark in the same character. And we have a paladin character who sniffed him out and went, devil, right? But the emphasis on the celestial side of things wasn't made. And so there was this natural, like, I'm a paladin, I should say, fuck off, keep your distance, I don't want to deal with you. But then there's this other side we need to possibly kind of start emphasizing to make that connection and maybe create a conduit for a story arc of like, let's help you go from the dark to the light,
Right. And I guess what I never understood about that scenario is, and I've known that Fulcrum was half Aasimar, half Tiefling this whole time. Balron has no idea. Because he just, like we were discussing, he looks like a Tiefling. Like, if you were to see one, you'd be like, that's a Tiefling. Like, there's a couple apparently small differences that are not inherently noticeable. Like, even in like some of the art we use. But
the issue is that Fulcrum's flat out told us what he is a couple times.
Hey, I don't think he told you in an RP scene that only you and him are involved in that we have on our channel. He's never told Balron.
I thought he said it to the group, at least in one other situation. Maybe I'm wrong.
There's been a lot of game sessions. We don't have them all recorded. I can't go back and watch them all. But I don't think Balron actually knows completely what he is. I think he told Balron he was created by the Baron. But that's all that Balron knows about it. So to me, what I wouldn't understand is if a paladin had sniffed him, why he would just be like, devil. Because if he is half Aasimar, he ought to be like confused, is what he ought to have been. You know what I mean? To me, that's where we're already off on the wrong foot. Like, we're trying to undo something that by statistics, like the actual stats of the sheet, doesn't seem like it should have been true at the time. So
yeah, I mean, we're having some interesting things here because that character Kodo, the Dragonborn, the new guy, he's had a difficult introduction because we're at a point where he's retired his old character. His old character is still there on the beach with us. The plot seems to be like we need to attend to all these people that are congregating around that old character. Oh, by the way, you rescued this new character at a slave pit, and his people are still here. He's got a boat out there somewhere. And we rescued all these other people too at the same time, but we don't care about them because they're not a player. So we're trying to get this guy in, but why is he staying with us? And it hasn't quite synced, Like, if we get him a boat, why doesn't he just go home with his people? So we have to find some reason outside of just pure metagaming that character needs to come along with us. And I think the original idea was that his people were supposed to be dead, right? But surprise, they're there. So it's I think at that point, as players, we have to kind of really work on emphasizing some form of camaraderie, some kind of shared mission. Maybe do some kind of like initiation kind of rite or something that kind of pulls people together like in a fraternal sense. And some of it, I think, like for my character, Skeezer, when I first started playing him, I was playing him kind of like a eccentric grandfather or Jiminy Cricket kind of thing. And he was working with Fulcrum. And then once we got on the high seas, because of the kind of backstory I have for him, he adapts to roles he's in. And so he started listening to Balron and being like, okay, we're privateers now. Let's go be just crazy wild, go with the flow. Like whatever happens, happens. Nothing matters. And so I got away from that. And I think by de-emphasizing those connections to characters and trying to develop them, I became disconnected from a lot of characters. And just more of just kind of like a whimsical, kind of silly character. So I think for my own take on it, I'm going to kind of revert back to that earlier concept a little bit more. I think that might help from my side of things.
I think just with your character in particular, I think it's hard to get too character involved with a character that doesn't really know what he is or why he is or why there's so many others of him running around. Like, I feel like until we solve more of the mystery of Skeezer, it's really hard to connect to Skeezer. Like it's easier to connect with Fulcrum, even though he's in a similar spot as you, that he's kind of in this weird, unique situation that he doesn't fully understand. But at least he kind of knows who he is. Right. Like, he doesn't like what he is. And he doesn't like where he came from, but at least he kind of knows who he is. And he understands he has these kind of two sides to him, and he kind of flips back and forth between them. So what do you consider like a flaw, the character that he deals with or whatever? Like at least he's grounded enough that he knows he is. Like with Skeezer, it's kind of hard to tell who Skeezer is because Skeezer doesn't even know who Skeezer is.
Yeah, and that was kind of the concept in mind. Was kind of like the like Westworld. If you guys have seen that show, like the first season of it, there's a lot of these characters were put into a role where they're playing out characters, and then they start to realize, no, we're actually, machines. We're being given these scripts. Essentially, we're technically something else, and we've been many things before. So what is the thing underneath all of that is consistent? And so that was the kind of the concept of Skeezer was, what is the fundamental nature of a person?
Right.
When
like
you strip off all these other things.
I kind of jokingly refer to them as like the droids in Star Wars today. Yeah. Like there's R2 units everywhere, and everywhere you go, there's just like another R2 unit, right? But there's only like one R2D2, and because he hasn't had his memory wiped in so long, like R2 is a character that sometimes, in some cases, is people's favorite character in all of Star Wars, and he's done a lot of heroic and cool things, right? But then you start to ask yourself, like, why in the hell would that droid ever stick around with these people? Like when you see her, like at some point, like you have to be like, why is that droid still around on his own free will? Like he ain't running off on his own, and Luke has to keep telling him, hey, remember, I own you, get back here. Like, right, yeah. He could have found a much easier shift to take somewhere else. But that's kind of what it's like with Skeezer. We keep running into these like other Skeezers, and like and some of it is because we just haven't really focused on it that much, with the exception of we kind of did do a little manipulation with the tattoo. Like I don't think we've gotten any closer to really understanding what Skeezer is.
Yeah, I have no idea.
So he looks like a gnome, but I don't think he's actually a gnome.
No, I think I had an idea of what I was planning when I pitched the idea to Levi, but I think he's done something different with it, and that's the way it always goes. So the mystery is still there for me. I have some theories, but I don't think that they're accurate. But really, with that plot, that one's, I have no idea what the puzzle is. Like it so far as it's looked like shapes. You move them around. Okay, they lock in. Something happens, and then there's other puzzles somewhere else. I'm assuming we, somehow get them to let us manipulate them. We fiddle around with them. They lock into place, and I'm hoping there's a piece of information we get at that point. Because right now, I don't feel like I have information. I feel like I have some drawings, I don't know how to progress it.
I mean, other than just taking time and us sitting down and just messing with it. And what's weird is like it, like, I can't tell how connected I think you really are to the other Skeezers. Like I did.
Yeah. When I've asked them questions, they don't have any information for me. They don't know anything about it. I don't know either.
I feel like we're not really meant to know yet, which is fine. But on a character level, like, I think then you have to approach how you want to connect with other characters a little differently, because you can't rely on personality from a backstory.
Right. Well, some of it is the idea of being ungrounded. When I made the character, some of the idea was you can be whoever you want to be at any time. You've told yourself a story that you're this type of person, but you don't have to be, and you could be, and like the concept I had was that like, no one has the same concept of you as you have of yourself. And no two people have the same concept of you as each other, just because they have different pieces of interactions with you. They know you from different places. They've had different encounters with you, that kind of stuff. So there isn't any one defined true you.
Yeah.
And I think that was the concept I kind of was playing around with when I made Skeezer. And so that gives me a lot of freedom where I can kind of bend and do different things. But the personality that seemed to work better at encouraging intergroup activity was the one I started with instead of the one I switched to. And I originally switched to it thinking that would create more incentive to go on the mission, to do some of the actions, to spur some of these like good characters and kind of balance out the alignment system of the party a little bit, where it was more interesting.
Well, that was true when we had an NPC who was driving the plot, literally driving the plot.
Yeah.
You know, when we had Burl, who was, we're gonna go do this, we're gonna go do that, boys load up. Like the decision wasn't in our hands, so it was easier for you to think like, hey, this kind of switch will give me more opportunities to interact with the characters because this, that, and the other. But since we dumped on this beach and Burl has sat on a boat for like a month and not done anything, like the interaction between us isn't things are only moving if we try to now move them. And so those choices have been put back in our hands. And now at this point, we're all kind of standing there with the ball like, well, what are we going to do with the ball? It's been given to us. You know, and I think Levi will go with whatever we choose. Like, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
It's been a weird situation. Figure out what that is and make the decision.
Yeah, it's a little weird situation because right now I feel like if we play our characters as characters, then all we end up doing is sitting on the beach and waiting, making sure everyone's safe. And then once everything is situated, we go home and then the game ends. You know, like at least the way things are kind of set up.
Yeah, but I'm always of the opinion that the next time we leave this and we get on a boat, we're going to hit another curveball.
Oh, we certainly will. But I'm saying as a plan for the players or the characters, as players, I'm like, yeah, let's find the next quest point. Let's go to the next action point. Let's find the next bad guy, you know, because that's where the fun is. The character's perspective, nobody wants to drive into a hurricane. Nobody wants to run into a pirate. You know, nobody wants to find the, you know, Sarlacc or whatever. You know, like you do the conservative smart thing and you do the things and get you your goal and you don't deviate, you know. That's why so many of us go to work, you know.
My character was never that way. Hell, his backstory is exactly the opposite. He could have lived a cushy life in his little druid village. But he wasn't. He was that guy who wanted to get out and thrill seek and go do shit. Like, so now he's totally the kind that just wants to get off the island and just start sailing till we figure out where the hell we're at. Like, so I mean, for me, it's easy. Like,
I don't know if anyone else is having this issue right now or if it's looking bad on your guys' side, but Discord is taking a dump again for me.
It did for a second, and now it's back. So,
yeah, I'm getting like red bars of doom over here.
It was for me for a second, and it looks like I'm back to good again. So, I get the point, though. I do believe there is kind of a place where characters have to, at some point, you have to just make a player decision.
I think there is some out of character metagaming you have to do to get the game to work as a game.
I feel like in my head, I made those decisions about 4 or 5 games ago.
But you're also playing a character that is less good intended.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, he's chaotic neutral. Like, it's easy to do as chaotic neutral. Don't get me wrong. I'm like,
let's cut, let's run,
cut and run. Yeah. But he isn't. But he also, at the same time, even though he's chaotic neutral, he understands the situation and what his fellows want. So he spent 8 hours making the fucking all the trees and shit grow, so that everyone else would have the ability to get food they needed. That there'd be plenty of food, plenty of lumber to build boats or whatever whatever they decided they wanted to do.
Yep.
And then he's like, all right, they're set. Let's go make a deal with Talua. Let's get them so they're not attacking them. Let's get the hell out of here. To me, it's that simple.
Yeah. But we have a paladin and we have I think he's lawful good, Fulcrum. Or at least maybe he's neutral good. I don't know. But definitely cleaving hard towards save people, protect the innocent, take care of the weak.
Sure.
And so for those two characters, I don't think it can be that easy. Like for Skeezer, I was playing him at the time as he's true neutral. So I was playing him as kind of just feeling out everyone and making sure they understood what their choices meant. Didn't care what the choice ended up being, but just want to say, yeah, if you're going to make that, make sure you're making a choice with all the information, you know? And as a result, I think all the characters basically sat around talking to each other in circles and we didn't get anywhere for multiple game sessions.
I think so. I feel like our group gets way overly conservative on a lot of things. Sometimes it kind of drives me nuts a little. Like, it's like, you don't have to worry about every little thing. Like, most of those things are like there's a lot of things that are just there. And I don't know if I just work on Levi's wavelength better, but I look around a lot of times and I'm like, yeah, that thing's literally just there. Like I don't think that's even a plot. It's just there. And I feel like we spend a lot of time toiling with things that are just simply there because people convince themselves there's something and they keep trying to make it into something. And sometimes I don't really feel like a lot of it's there's anything there with that. And in the meantime, things that are obvious that he's like beating us over the head with a damn hammer with, when I got birds landing on me going, come to Tallulah, well,
that's what we were intending to do from the start, was go to Tallulah.
Right.
But other things were happening. It was like, oh, this dude comes over and tells you a bunch of stuff. This guy comes over and tells you a bunch of stuff. There's a thing over there that seems like it's threatening. Here's another thing that's over here. It's happening. Oh, the storm started doing this other thing. You're like, okay. So
let me run you down the rabbit hole. And this is where characters, in my opinion, like this is where it becomes an easy decision for Bowron. So we assume that if we leave, they're not safe on the beach, right? That's why we can't leave. Yeah, they're not safe on the beach. So let's say we wait till we build a boat for them all. Mm-hmm. Do we let them sail off alone?
No, I'm assuming they're sailing with us.
They're not safe. They're sailing with us. Yeah. When we get to Glassgate, now are they safe?
Yes.
Why? What makes them any safer there?
Civilization.
We know there's were-rats waiting for Wrighton. We know there's entire halfling races of were-rats waiting to kill Wrighton when he gets back.
There's an entire police force. There's an entire infrastructure military. There's an entire interlinked civilization.
All of them. There's 2 different dukes and earls who are currently fighting over the whole thing, and that was all of Wrighton's backstory to begin with. There is nothing. There could be a dragon over the next hill for all we know. Like, how far do we have to escort halflings across land, sea, and air before we finally have 60 halflings where we feel like they're safe?
Well, I mean, with the mission being take them home, the mission is take them home.
Right. But my point is, at some point, it doesn't matter if it's now or later, we have to dump 60 NPCs off in one form or PC and just assume they're going to be safe. And there's really nowhere in a fantasy world where they are ever actually safe. So if you're leaving them with NPC...
I think there is. I think it's just not where we're at. Like, I definitely think we got back to where we started, into Randallion, in a nation state that is won multiple wars, that has, established trade routes,
it's
all
not
that
a thing anymore.
Yeah, it is.
No, Levi said it fell apart. It's not a thing.
No.
Yeah.
They were definitely enforcing their laws when I was breaking them during game sessions. Yeah. I think there's a considerable difference between leaving them in the middle of a wild island with monsters, giant feuding, warring states of elemental summoning, terrestrial hating,
but that's
things that are seemingly level like 8 or 9, murdering halflings with no equipment that are women and children and grandfathers.
We got to take care of Joina. That's true. Like, Joina's got to go.
Yeah,
but I think once we handle Joina, like, I don't think Peg's even around anymore. Like, I think it's a red herring even looking for Peg at this point.
I think it has to be there, otherwise there's no route home.
Yeah, well, I don't think the route home's going through Peg. I think
Peg is our MacGuffin. Like, I think the Ziggy get us back through Quantum Leap moment has to come through the dude who navigates through the storm, right? Like, if he does it habitually, he controls the thing that creates the issue that got us here in the first place, and nobody else has any idea what the thing is. That has to be the route towards a solution.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we're doing. Call me a skeptic. I don't think that's the route that this game actually is.
So what do you think it is? Just sail into the ocean and hope?
I think it's going to be a lot of charting and island hopping till we figure out exactly what part of this planet. We're still on the same planet. We've kind of determined that. Just we have part of it.
When did we decide that?
Levi has hinted pretty heavily.
He said none of the stars are the same. He said that the currents aren't the same. The weather phenomena aren't the same. None of the animals are the same. None of the plants are the same.
I know.
And when we've interacted with the water, it's not the same temperatures. Right. Everything has been described as completely different.
Yep. Correct. But then when I talk to him about if we're on other planes of existence, he's like, no, you're still in this world. Okay. Just like, it's like somebody dumped us in Australia.
Okay. Well, then that gives us a possibility.
How do we get back to New York from Australia is basically what I think it's going to be, basically like crossing the Pacific Ocean, trying to find our way back to wherever we're going island by island. I think he's got a bunch of stuff in that path along
potentially. It's hard to tell. And that may be the case, but from the character perspective, if he gave you that a piece of information, I certainly haven't got it in character.
Because you got to think of it like this. He took time to figure out why Kodo's Dragonborn were never found in the other part of the world, and why these other things aren't found in the other part of the world. So they're clearly on the same world, or he wouldn't have to discuss that.
Yeah, but I thought, and Clint can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I thought that Kodo was taken here by the storm just the same as the rest of us. Like, I thought the only native was that weird, super, like, tusked up and spiked person with a weird accent that's all into trading.
Banana?
Maybe I'm wrong. No, not Banana. The weird alien-looking woman that was around the campsite.
Oh, yeah, her.
She's the only person who said she's native to the area that wasn't a Wavin or the weird, goofy pirate or banana guy.
Wait, don't get me wrong. I thought we were on the first layer of hell for quite a while.
Yeah. So yeah, he's confirming there. He was also brought here. So yeah, I don't think the Dragonborn gives you any definitive answer one way or the other. He was from the world we're from. Doesn't necessarily mean he's from wherever we're at. But yeah, I think we're getting at a lot of these things. We're kind of rushing into some issues, and some of it is about needing to decide how much out of character metagaming we want to do to propel a plot or to form a party, and how much we want to stay true to form with our characters and a simulation of real life, in the fantasy world. Like I think for a game standpoint, I think we have to metagame and say, okay, yeah, we're going to cut and run, leave all these people stranded and just move on so the plot can go. Or we're just going to assume we're best friends, even though technically we should all be going separate ways or hanging out with this other person. You kind of almost have to smash things in that working way. Otherwise it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of the case. I think a lot of that's going to fall on just more of, like you said, like maybe a couple specific characters. Like I said, my perspective's pretty easy for Ballroom. He could cut and run at any moment, and he'd be more than happy to take you all with him. Like, he doesn't have that problem. So,
yeah, but you don't want to stay, right? As an in-character thing, right?
I don't want to what?
Like, your character wouldn't want to stick around and stay with these people, though. So,
yeah, he would.
Yeah?
My character's bond is the ship. He says crews come and go. The ship is what he's bound to, so he stays with the grit.
Right.
So,
but if somebody decided the grit's going off and we decided not to get on the grit, you wouldn't stick with the party. You would stick with the grit, right?
Well, because of that specific bond. Yeah, maybe. Right. Yeah.
So, like,
that's just because that is a specific bond I took, like, at character creation. But I mean, like, he kind of, that's one of the reasons why he had everybody try to rebuild the damn ship too. Like,
so yeah, and I guess that's what I'm looking at, is that there are certain things that are very important to certain characters that are baked into the sheet by decisions we made in like the character development cycle. That once we put it in the real world with the other characters, they're not necessarily driving characters together, but they're definitely giving off ramps to leave. So like for Kodo, he's got like a big off ramp of, hey, as soon as my people are set, I go with my people. I'm out. I have no reason to stick around with these guys. And then with Balrin, if we decided not to get on that boat, or that we got upset with Burl and didn't want to deal with him anymore, I think Balrin would leave us, right? By character.
Well, I mean, I guess in some ways maybe, but there's other things Balrin's kind of planning, but I mean, I could see scenarios where he would, and I could see scenarios where he wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it would depend on how kind of some of it plays out.
Yeah, but I'm thinking as a group, though, it's important to have a contingency for when these things happen. Like, how would I manage to keep the party cohesive? Because at the end of the game, it's a group game, right?
Sure.
Like, game doesn't happen, or at least if it does, you're playing a new character once that event occurs, you know, if the party splits, you know.
Right. I mean, currently Byron believes he needs Skeezer and he needs more game. He hasn't found any reason why he needs Kodo yet. He hasn't found a good reason why he really needs Fulcrum, but he believes right now he needs Skeezer and he needs more gain to carry out what he wants to do. So I put it in my intro. He even says it at the end of the intro.
I have to rewatch it. I kind of forgot.
It's not by luck that he came across a gnome who makes maps and a elven minstrel who sings songs. So
that's what it is. Okay.
He believes he needs them.
Gotcha. Now I remember why. Wow, have we seriously used that much time already? It is already 11:50.
It is. We can do this all night.
Quick. Yeah, we sure could. I am curious to kind of look through the chat, though, real quick. There's been a few things said. Let's see. Any new revelations here?
A lot of Clint here.
Yeah, a lot of him. Yeah, I think there is a middle ground. I think you can't be too rigid on either end of it. Because like we were saying, if you stick too hard to a character internal like world, you run into these situations where there's no way to keep a group together or keep a narrative flowing. And then if you don't have any character and you're just like bobbing along doing whatever happens, it's not that interesting. So like for me, the fun zone is somewhere in the middle there. And it is tricky figuring out what, you know, just how much you should be willing to bend in either direction to get into that sweet spot. Well, and I don't know we'll know that answer, but
I think, you know, the cliche kind of thing that people have kind of turned into a almost like a watchword sort of deal is that's what my character would do. Like that has become like the red flag of like you are about to do something wrong in game. Is if your response is, well, that's what my character would do, then you're probably wrong. Is kind of the way it's almost viewed in the TTRPG community anymore. Like,
well, yeah, because if you get there are certain people who can ruin anything.
Sure. You know? Sure, but I'm just saying, like that's like a thing now. Like people like that's the last thing people want to hear is like, well, I'm going to do this thing that ruins the game for everyone else because that's what my character would do. Is pretty much like
the classic thief
like
that
the classic
from the party or
you don't. Yeah, so
somebody backstabs a party member.
I played paladins probably more than anybody else in the group. Right, I'm kind of notorious for it or whatever. You know how many times I ran with rogues who stole shit, murdered people, whatever. Like at some point you can't go around, you know, slapping them all, putting them in jail for it. Like you kind of have to just do what you do. Like you can't. And I mean, those are a lot of lawful good, like back when you had to be lawful good kind of crap, you know, like, so yeah, I mean, you have to find reasons like why you're hanging out with some of these people. Cause there's really, I had that in my 5e game that I run at the game shop. We had this happen. There's one gal's playing the lawful good life domain cleric. And she was like, telling me, she's like, I don't understand why I'm still with these people. And so she attempted, and this was amazing, just the way sometimes the dice are just on your side. So she attempted to take a moment. Her character just sat down and decided to pray to her god. And I don't remember which god it is. It's one of them wood elf gods from one of the books. And I told her to go ahead and make an insight roll. She had a nat 20. Nice. So I gave her a moment of clarity, a moment of, she wasn't high enough level to have it, but she got a moment of divine intervention that she was in the right place and she needed to be with these people for a reason. And so at the end of this, like another game session later, at the end of it, she finally came across why she's got to be there with them. So I think you can set those things up, you know, on the DM side, and you can help make some of those character decisions pay off, like in different ways. So sometimes I think just how many battles can you possibly go into combat with people until you get that sort of military band of brothers sort of thing going on? Like we've been through enough battles and enough everything else. Like I like to think there's a certain amount of like Bauern's taken time to risk life and limb to save damn near about everybody in the group at one point or another. Like if he was going to cut and run, he could have left you on the Pirate Cove dead. He could have let you fall to your death. He could have done this, you know? So,
yeah, I think that's the thing. We were joking about this earlier. The near TPK that happened to us, I think, will cement a bond between Kodo and Fulcrum and Morgaine and Skeezer. More so from the Fulcrum and Kodo side towards the other characters. Which is awesome, except for the fact that Balrin wasn't there. So this bonding experience occurred without him there. So now we have a clique basically forming.
Right. What's so funny about it is like, oh man, we had this near death experience. I'm like, I've been at 0 hit points 7 times.
Yeah, but this was the first
just
time
getting
it felt
a taste
like the party was about to go down.
You're getting this taste of the Balrin life now. Like,
yeah, well, with Balrin though, it's like you went down, but it was very clear we were going to be able to get you back. Like the situation was like, I'm pretty positive we can get you in a safe spot.
That was if Levi didn't walk an NPC Kodo over there and heal me, because I guess maybe Clint gave him some direction too. Yeah. I failed a third death save, so that was it. Like, and that was in mid combat. It wasn't like combat was over when that happened. There was still combat going on.
Yeah, maybe I need to go back and look at that one again.
Yeah, I know. I've been on 2 failed death saves like 4 times. One time, the only reason I was saved is because Morgaine reached into a trap and poured a potion down me and took damage and everything else from it. So there's been some situations where it's been pretty hairy. Yeah, I know you told me, Clint, but I'm just saying, like, some of those situations, like, it wasn't necessarily going to come out okay.
Mm-hmm. I think in this one, it was unique in that half of the group was simultaneously down, and the other were nowhere close enough to do anything about it. And the people who were down were the 2 healers.
We had that at the slate pit. Now the difference was we had healers still up at the slate pit, but
we didn't have any healing left. Like we had 1 potion on each person that was down, but they were inside of a water elemental that was drowning them and pummeling them to death. And the initiative was 1 turn to save 2 different people.
Oh, don't worry. I was watching that episode from Pennsylvania, and I was like, dude, this is it. I really am going to have to run a rescue mission when I get back. Like, don't get me wrong. I was right there with you. I was like,
that had a different feel to it. Like some of these other fights have been serious, but like I never felt like, oh shit, this is it.
There was about 5 seconds. There was 5 seconds there where when Kodo dropped after your disc ended, I thought he was dead.
Yeah,
I thought he had already failed. So I thought that was the extra. I was like, oh crap, he's dead. That's it. Like,
yeah, if that had been the way he died, I would have been pretty upset about that scenario. That would have been a pretty right in the heart kind of oh shit moment. Yeah, that's tough. But we are not at a good stopping point necessarily, but at the time where we should be stopping. So it's been a good one. I've been enjoying this one. It's rare that we get to just talk shit to each other and that kind of stuff anymore. So I had fun. Hope you had fun too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we've done a good job of kind of just covering just a little bit, maybe more than I thought we would about our specific game. But there's a lot of things there that translate to what other people might be dealing with in their games. If you're more mechanically inclined and you're doing dungeon crawls, none of the last half of this game is none of the last half of this session is gonna mean anything to you because you could care less when you're down there in a dungeon.
Sword guy's dead. Cool. Bring in guy bugbear. Let's go. Right.
Yeah. There's 5 more guys standing at the entrance of the dungeon waiting for their turn to come in. Right. Okay. Cool.
Tag them in. But it's interesting, and I do think that there is some give or take that has to be made, and you got to have those conversations with each other, other players. Sometimes you might even have to just go and talk to the DM and be like, hey, can you help us out with this? And, maybe that's something we'll talk about with our own DM pretty soon too. But, if you guys have experiences with this, let us know about it. We'd like to hear about it. If you see how you've kind of interacted with it, leave those on the comments on our video when we put it up on YouTube. And hopefully we'll have a nice conversation in there. So speaking of YouTube, if you don't know about it, if you look down below in our panels, you will see a link to our YouTube, and all the previous episodes of the Wisdom Check are on there. Some have been cut up if the subject matters were easy to split up, and lots of people are going back checking those out, and hopefully, like I said, put some conversation in there, give some feedback, let us know what you think, and it'll go a long way. So, Dustin, what are you up to these days?
All right. Well, I just ended a 4th 4E game with Notorious DMG. I do play games with them every now and then when schedule works out. So thanks to Chuck from Defenders of Cobalt for running that one for me. There's 2 more game sessions for that one, but my character died and I'm actually working and then on vacation, so I won't make the next 2 games anyway. So we decided it's a good time for me to die. So I did. And
Brutal.
Gloriously. And when I'm not playing with Notorious DMG, obviously I'm in Everstorm sometimes. Not recently, not for a while, but
Yeah,
we'll be back. Live game October 12th will be my next appearance in Everstorm. So
Can't wait for that. It's going to be so good.
So in the meantime, I'm going to be playing some video games on Plague State. We just had our guild cookout last weekend, so that's why I was in Pennsylvania and not on stream on Saturday. We're looking to ramp up with some other MMOs and stuff we might delve into for a little while as we wait for Camelot Unchained to come out. So you might find me doing some stuff over there. We're talking about playing some video games here. So on TT2KB, you'll still find me around here sometimes playing some video games in between this long stretch of me not getting to play in Everstorm. And tomorrow, you'll find me actually on Grim and Perilous Gaming. We're going to be hosting it. So if you come here, you'll find it. And then you can hop in and click it, and it'll take you over there to him. We're going to be playing. This is actually, I believe, the first time this will be streamed anywhere. The official little module for Zweihander RPG Chateau,
Great.
which
Nice.
I actually had a chance to play test the original version of it about 3 months ago with Jousm, who's running it for him, and it was a very interesting run through. It had a lot of kind of issues and stuff that we helped him work through, and so all of us that were there got some playtester credit for it. So
It's awesome.
The module was awesome. So
Iteration,
I'm
iteration.
interested to get back in there and see it this time, because he's like I said, it's been like revamped, so this thing's going to be pretty sweet from what I understand.
Awesome.
And he's looking to kill me because he didn't kill me the first time. So
It's always good to walk in with a target on your back. Yeah. So, for myself, I do Let's Play games. So if you go over to Reign Survives, REIGN Survives on YouTube, you will find all my past games. So I did a lot of Fallout 4 Frost. I did Pathfinder Kingmaker, still kind of doing that. And I just generally play a lot of games, survival games like Ark Survival Evolved. And I try to ramp up the difficulty as high as I can and struggle through it. So if you like watching people struggle and fail and then eventually succeed, that's the kind of stuff I do. I am thinking about taking a little break from that, though, because I kind of want to focus more on what we're doing here over at the TT2KB, crank out maybe some new shows, got some ideas, maybe we'll kick around. And so doing a little bit of revamping at the moment. So hope to see you around and appreciate you guys coming out.
yep, I do have a few more announcements.
Awesome.
First, just to close out again, congratulations to BizLab and Travante
Absolutely.
for winning the subs and the followers Die Hard Dice. So, like I said, got those out in the mail today. We have also just kind of joined up with a couple other streams to become part of a stream team.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see a little panel down there that says the Drunken Adventurers League, where the Grouch Couch, Air Laser, and the Liching Hour have teamed up with us, and we're doing a lot of cross promotion with those guys. Grouch Couch just finished their first 5e D&D campaign last night in spectacular fashion. So
Fantastic.
so we're working with them for right now, and then we have there's one more I was going. Oh yes, huge congratulations to Grim and Perilous Gaming for making partner today as well on Twitch. They're official Twitch partners. So
oh yeah, congratulations to them. That's freaking awesome. Yeah. Do we have anything else? Do we want to talk about guests that are coming up?
yeah, we do have some guests coming up here soon. Our guest who was supposed to be with us here tonight, Daniel D. Fox from Zweihander, he has rescheduled for October 7th. So we will eventually get him here on the show. In the meantime, next week we have Scuzz Nugget coming. We're going to talk about some modules for D&D 5e. The week after that, Turkey from the Grouch Couch will be here. We haven't picked exactly topics yet. Then we have a couple weeks there in September where I'm going to be on vacation. So it'll be Levi coming back to join you, Jeff. And I think you have a couple of guests that you're looking to line up for those.
We sure do. And one of them is going to be Larry Elmore. So we haven't quite pegged down which day of those two, either the 9th or the 16th. But Larry Elmore, if you don't know who he is, I don't know how you've been gaming, but all of the artwork that was in the old school Dungeons and Dragons, so especially the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons book, was all Larry Elmore stuff. He is the dude when you think of fantasy Dungeons and Dragons. It's his work, and we owe a lot to his vision. So I'm really looking forward to having him on.
And then September 23rd, we have Duke from Geek Unleashed. September 30th, Chris Jackson. And then Daniel D. Fox on October 7th. So it takes us clear into October.
Yeah, we got other people lined up. We're just kind of getting the schedule all worked out. So we got plenty of great guests coming up. And I hope you guys stick around and check it out. Well, yeah. I think that does it for us.
I think that's all of our announcements. So,
all right. Till next time.
Do we want to raid anybody? Is there anyone to raid?
We should probably raid somebody. Who's out there? Let's see what we got to watch.